Now, when it comes to children and smacking, there are a number of ethical, moral and legal issues that divide opinion. Parents, campaigners and legislators struggle to find common ground on how best to protect the safety of children and keep them well disciplined.
To discuss this very controversial issue, we are joined by Senator Gillian Von Turnout, Barrister Aileen Hickey and MummyPages.ie's mum in residence Laura Hoy. You're very welcome, all ladies. No dads here, which is a bit unfortunate because dads have children too, but nonetheless, Gillian, let's come to you first because I want you to just very clearly
Sorry,
say...
what am I?
I mean, discussing it. You're eliciting the answers, darling.
Fine,
yes.
yeah, sorry.
But set up the law for us as it stands in this country.
It actually goes back to common law that you're allowed to reasonably chastise your child. Now, in common law, it was allowed in all different settings. So you were allowed it in school settings. We've changed that and taken it away. But the law that is still there is that you're allowed to reasonably chastise your child, or if you're minding up to 3 children. It's the same law that applies. And what I would like to see is that we just repeal that law so that we don't allow parents or others to have a defence if ever it went to court. Now, nobody is using it in the courts. I'm not implying that they're using it in the courts. But the law is there saying you can reasonably chastise your child or up to 3 children.
And you would like to see in its place?
No, I would like to see that we would repeal the law as we did for school settings.
Okay.
And I think for me that would be enough because we have laws on child abuse and those type of laws, and I think they will suffice. So I just want to repeal the defence.
So you don't want to see slapping per se being made illegal?
I think by repealing the law, you're actually saying
enough.
It does enough,
okay,
in my opinion.
Okay. So where does reasonably chastising stray into child abuse?
Well, the difficulty is, I think, firstly, like if you're tapping, slapping, you know, and we can get into all definitions of what different people mean, you're actually saying to a child, this is how you solve a problem. This is how you do it. And when it doesn't work the first time when you gave them a tap, what do you do the next time? Do you hit them harder? Do you keep hitting them harder? So the lines start blurring. And you're also, on an emotional level, you're saying to a child, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm not going to try and be rational with you because I'm supposed to be the rational adult, but no, I'll be irrational and I'll hit out. So for me, yeah.
Aileen, your take on this?
See, well, you know, there's a reason why this is such a controversial and divisive topic. And you've actually just hit on one of the elements of it there. And yes, there is a huge vagueness about what constitutes reasonable chastisement. And, you know, it's obviously it's open to interpretation, it's open to abuse. My difficulty would be in criminalising someone for smacking a child on the bottom who literally is about to do something that you actually don't have time to reason with the child or cajole the child, as in they're about to run across the road or put their hand, you know, sometimes there just isn't time to cajole a child or to, you know, to reason effectively with why you shouldn't do it. Now, I don't condone violence against anyone, children or anybody else. I think children should be protected. But at the same time, and I obviously think that the first level has to be a non-violent way of chastising your child, whether that's taking away privileges or with older children, you know, grounding is very effective. I have a couple of children's telephones or mobile phones in the car currently, and they won't see them for a few days. Yeah, they do, yeah. But they didn't get a slap for it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, sometimes there can be a scenario where a smack on the bottom is quick and effective, and it's also for the child's safety and protection. And yes, obviously, if you continuously slap a child on the bottom, it loses its effectiveness. I'm talking about in the very rare situation where a quick smack on the bottom is in the child's best interest. And as I say, that it could be that the child is literally about to run into traffic or put their hand into the oven or
so you're basically
whatever
saying
it is.
It should ultimately be the parent's right to administer a slap when and if they see fit.
Yes, and again, I do know that there is a fine line between, you know, and there is a huge vagueness over what one parent will consider as reasonable chastisement and what another parent thinks of as leathering.
Okay, so Laura, we're in danger here of concentrating on the physical aspect of this, that there's that abuse of the child involves some form of physical force. There are a lot of other ways, some of them far more terrifying than physical force, to abuse a child. You know, lock them in their room, take all their privileges away from them, put them on a naughty step for, make them, you know, all of that sort of stuff. There's a psychological terror that can have far greater damage and far longer lasting damage. So again, this area of what's reasonable chastisement and what's child abuse.
And that includes shouting, actually, and you often see parents shouting in the face of children. That can be absolutely terrifying.
Well, I mean, in terms of legal, actually, we should bear this in mind, that if you actually go up to the street, up to a stranger in the street and shout abuse at them, that is actually assault.
Absolutely.
That's you can be charged for that. You don't have to lay a hand on them.
I think the fundamental problem is that we're actually not teaching our parents how to discipline their children, how to bring them up, how to raise positive members of society. And so what we're using is our self-reference, how we were brought up, and our parents and how they were brought up. And then you think back to Catholic schools years and years ago, and there was the leather strap, and that might have been used on our parents, then our parents used the wooden spoon on us, and then we're using that self-reference to discipline our own children, because there's no training.
Would you agree with Aileen that there are times when slapping is needed?
I'm not even slapping.
absolutely
I'm not talking about slapping, actually. I'm literally talking about, just something that will stop them immediately from doing what they're trying to do.
But I think for me that where I would be seeing the cases that you're giving is what I would do to a colleague or to anybody else. If I saw a colleague was about to step out on the road, I'd pull them back. Okay,
But that's exactly it. You pull them back. You don't slap them.
So for me, I think we need to see that children have rights and they're rights holders, and they're not a property of somebody that I can have this power over. So for me, we need to move forward and say, actually, how would I treat a colleague? I should be ensuring.
So, Laura, you don't see any point in time where a slap would be warranted, or...
No, if a child's about to run across the road, you pull them back. If they're about to put their hand in the oven, you pull them back. There is never an appropriate time to slap a child. That's harm, and where does the line? Where do you cross the line? It becomes child abuse, and actually, it's a completely ineffective form of discipline. It breaks down the emotional trust between a parent and a child. It's modelling behaviour that we never want to see our children perpetrate themselves to another human being. So why would we do it to our child? We're supposed to be the model of behaviour. We're supposed to be teaching them how to do all of this. So no, I don't think it's ever appropriate. There's a really good thing to remember. It's for parents who are frustrated, who are in the heat of the moment, who have lost their patience completely. And it's the 4 C's. It's count, cause, consequence and consistency. So count to 10. The minute you start counting to 10, my children certainly know that I'm in a bad place and that they need to be good. So they go, oh no, mummy's counting. So immediately they know something is wrong. Cause, explain to your child what has happened. Teach them empathy. Ultimately, you will produce a child who's more sensitive to others' needs and will become a better citizen. And then consequence. Take away something. Take away their favourite toy. Take away a reward that you've promised them, and teach them that there are consequences to consistent bad behaviour, and then be consistent in your ruling as an adult in establishing those rules.
It would be great if we could all go by the handbook of perfect parenting all the time. But there's the daily grind. Parenting is a hugely difficult area. I have found it much more difficult than I expected, when I started having children. And
just remind people how many children you have.
I have 5 children.
Okay.
And as they get older and get to different stages, I find other issues that I didn't expect to come across.
Aileen, you raised a very good point there. I mean, there's no circumstances under which a 2 or 3-year-old child should be slapped. I mean, they're big. They're still basically
because they can't reason. So there's no point in slapping someone who can't reason.
But as children get older, and as they find their own way in the world and develop their own personality and decide they want to define their boundaries, you have the classic, young stag decides to bump heads with the old stag, and I'm sure there's the female equivalent as well. And sometimes they feel that the way they should define their personality and their boundaries is by physically imposing themselves on you. Now, what do you do at that stage, Jill?
Sorry, I thought that was a start for it. I suppose my whole
because we will be challenged by our children at some stage, and sometimes they will challenge us physically. So what do? Do we say, oh no, I won't touch you, and they then rule the roost?
No. I suppose to get to that situation, and obviously I would hope that you wouldn't get to that situation. I think the 4 C's that have been introduced.
But puberty and hormones make them do very strange things.
But how you deal with that problem will actually give them lessons in life of how they deal with problems later in life. So in the workplace, we have all been in situations like that. Where do I get my coping skills of dealing with that in the workplace? Because my parents taught me how to have cool down, to not actually storm out in anger.
I'm just wondering, is there data out there which goes to show that children who've been slapped fare worse in this life than children who haven't been slapped?
We see the difficulty goes around to what is the definition of how people have been slapped and how it escalated in. But we definitely can see on early studies looking at the emotional effects that it's having on people's mental health and their childhood, and how they feel in their confidence in themselves, the issues of empathy that they have. And for me,
because I know we hear anecdotally from our viewers all the time. Sure, I got a few slaps and didn't mean no harm.
I think you can find a report or a survey to back up any argument, basically, that you actually want to find. So you will find reports or surveys service that
But
say
my
this will
difficulty
turn
is-
into children,
yeah.
that the children learn, what to do and not.
Yeah.
And again, not obviously with leathering or any kind of physical abuse.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about a child who happened to get a smack at some stage for doing something.
Yeah.
It doesn't
best
necessarily.
practice around the world is that this is illegal.
Yeah, and the majority of European countries have now brought in a ban on corporal punishment. For me, I just think it's too old that we still have a law that allows parents and those minding up to 3 children to reasonably chastise.
Okay,
Let's
guys.
take it out
It's
of our
actually
laws.
just a defence, actually. I mean, I think
I know
they'll
it's
always
a defence.
repeat. It is only a defence.
I know, but we should take it out. The defence should be taken out, and that we see
Guys, we're
children
going
as
to
rights
unfortunately
holders.
have to leave it there, but thank you for all of your reasoned arguments. Much appreciated.